Hi there, my name's Terence Mentor, and with me I have someone who is a musician, she's a writer, she's a lyricist, she's a speaker. In fact, she's given one of the most amazing TED Talks I've ever written. Ladies and gentlemen, Amanda Palmer, hello.
You wrote my TED Talk? That's where it came from.
Did I say wrote? Did I actually say wrote?
Yeah.
It was so good I want to take credit for it. Did I miss anything?
I want to know, how did you prepare for your TED Talk? Did you rehearse a lot? Was it really hard?
Yeah, see, this is what I did. I basically watched your talk and then wrote out the words verbatim. Let's go there. This is one of the questions I was going to ask later on. But the TED Talk it looked like it was quite a beast to get done.
Yeah.
I get that sense?
Yeah, a TED Talk is when you actually strip it all down, it's like a theatrical performance. You know, you rehearse, it's a monologue. It's a epic monologue.
And you were there in costume as well. You had
Everyone
your flower
is in
ready.
costume,
Yeah.
and actually, I don't know how much you know about the inner workings of TED, but there are certain things you can't wear. You have to match the stage. It's heavy duty, and you do a big rehearsal on the main stage. They film it, they give feedback, they direct you. So it's a big deal. And I mean, not to go totally off topic immediately, but I'm gonna.
There you go for it.
I watched a TED Talk this morning given by a psychiatrist from Zimbabwe that just tore me apart and made me weep and was so perfectly on topic given the school shootings in America this morning. I was like, oh, please everyone watch this TED Talk. It was basically about how he's training Zimbabwean grandmothers to stand in for the fact that there's no mental health care in the country.
Sheesh. Well, when you came in, when we first met, you kind of had the sense of oh my word, there's so much going on in the world. It's all so hectic. And reading your blog post that you just posted an hour ago, you definitely get that sense of are you feeling overwhelmed right now?
No, but yes. But it's sort of we're all constantly feeling constantly overwhelmed. And so if you're going to survive in this world, especially if you have a 2-year-old on top of everything, you just need to accept this as the way things are.
So how do you do that though?
It's just life.
It's just one of those things. But how do you do that with a 2-year-old? I mean, I have a 4-year-old and a 2.5-year-old.
How do you do it?
I have no idea. I'm asking everyone who has kids. How do you take in the thing that the world is a very difficult place to live in for pretty much everyone, and you have to get them ready for this world?
I cling to the fact that it has kind of always been this way. That it's not particularly that this moment in time is the overwhelming one where people are shooting each other and presidents are getting ousted. And it's sort of always been thus. And parents with young children have always been looking at humanity going, oh my God, how am I going to introduce this one to these ones? And we do our best and we constantly fuck up and we forgive ourselves and we make constant jokes with our community about how fucked up it is, and then we just keep on. And
everyone goes, on. Yes, we're with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that struck me so much about this TED Talk this morning by this guy from Zimbabwe is the critical component that seems to be missing to make things better nowadays is just human connection. Anything is survivable. Any level of chaos and violence and destruction is withstandable and survivable as long as we have each other tribally and we can see and recognize and authenticate each other and our experiences. And what I feel is happening is just a total breakdown of society where people are so isolated that even the basic stuff that's happening to us doesn't feel withstandable, survivable, because we're not connected to one another.
We're in our little cells. And I think the word you used in the post you wrote was empathy, which I totally agree with you. It definitely feels like the more empathy we have, the more I can understand you, the more I'm willing to see the world from your perspective. Has that kind of thing always been part of your life, been part of your art, or have you found that lately, as you become more experienced in the world, which is the way my mom told me is a good way to say it, as you got older, is that something that you're starting to realize is more and more important?
I think so. I mean, I started out as a professional touring musician. Well, by some standards early, but by some standards, you know, by Miley Cyrus standards, I started very late. I was 25. But yeah, it is actually something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, because I always had two departments of my life. My practice of trying to become a better, more balanced, empathetic human being, which sometimes manifested in, you know, the books I was reading, the people I was talking to, the work on myself I was doing in any area, yoga, meditation, you know, reading books by Buddhist monks and trying to figure it all out, one department. And then punk rock and making music and touring around in a van and, you know, the other department. And I didn't really watch them merge until I got into my 30s. And I wrote a song like in my mind, which I actually thought was like a hippy-dippy embarrassing song. But I noticed that it was such an easy bridge. And this song that I actually thought was sort of embarrassing was so resonant with pretty much all of my fans all over the world that I went, maybe it isn't impossible for this part of my life and this part of my life to come together. And maybe my songwriting doesn't all have to be about anger, woe, and heartbreak. It can also be about this confused, seeking, chaotic human being experience that I'm kind of always dealing with on the other side of my life, and they started to come together.
That's interesting, because as I was going through Amanda Lander, and if you ever want to get a very good idea of what Amanda Palmer is all about, or at least the essence of your work.
The greatest hits.
The greatest hits, there we go. Check out her website, amandapalmer.net. The Amanda Lander section was very insightful for me. Thank you.
I had to put that together because I've put out so much material, and people find you on the internet, and even if they go to your website, like, there's so much out there. So I made a kind of a greatest hits website called Amanda Landa for anyone who found my TED Talk or read my book and was like, but I don't, your music, you make music? And I was like, oh God, I have to make this easy for you.
It was, and it was super easy. But one of the articles, one of the blog posts you wrote just after you were finally released from this very complicated and difficult record deal way back in the day, one of the lines in there was, I am going to do whatever I well want, which I think was fantastic. And then on the other hand, you're also talking about empathy, and in your book, The Art of Asking, you talk about going to a yoga retreat and having this moment where you just have to stand and stare at the person and be there for the person, just completely in all of you. How do those two things work? How does what to me, and forgive me, it sounds like a very selfish statement. You know, I will do whatever I well want.
Yeah, that's funny. I've never really thought about it this way, and it's a really good way of asking me the question. But I think
yes.
No, really, I think one of the things that I didn't totally understand back then, and I had an inkling. So it's a little bit of a long story, but basically, by the time I got off my major label, and I fought really hard, fought tooth and nail to get myself out of a contract that was terrible and away from a label that was terrible, R.I.P. Roadrunner Records. They don't exist anymore, so I can say they were terrible. And you know, they did a good job at promoting my band in the very beginning, a really common major label story, and then they sort of decided that the band wasn't going to be a massive success. They pulled all of our funding. And yet, like, I had been on the road for years at that point with my band, just the two of us, first in a car, then in a van, then on tour buses. But we really went out of our way to connect with our fans and to connect with the communities that we were playing with. We were not and did not want to be like rock stars. We wanted to be a punk rock band connecting with people, playing on the floor and not on the stage. That was my band. And we were really proud of our roots and proud of our connection with our communities. And you know, and I started a blog when the band started, so I had a constant conversation and rapport with the people who listened to my music. I was friends with them.
Yeah, you knew these people.
And they knew me, and they watched my trials and tribulations, and it was a family, and it was a conversation. So I knew that if I left my major label, my people would have my back, whatever was going to happen. They would follow me onto another indie label. They would follow me if I wanted to be totally independent. And I decided that I wanted to be totally independent. I didn't want to sign with another label. I didn't want to make deals with corporations. I was, and the internet was just working enough that I could make records and sell them to my fans.
Right.
And that's what I decided
Around about
to
what
do.
year was this
This would have been
all
around
kind of happening?
2008.
Okay, so there's
Like
enough.
the dawn of social media,
Yeah.
the beginning of Twitter, just when you could really connect with everyone like this.
We knew what the share button was all about, and that's
Right.
the thing. Yeah.
But to get back to your question, and your shoes are amazing. They're so bright and shiny.
They're super cheap, and I put them on just for you today.
They were 30 rand.
They were 30 rand.
So don't wear them in the rain.
No.
They'll fall apart.
Which is why it's 5 for Cape Town. So
That's fine. It won't
we're
rain.
not going to have any rain.
So, getting back to the point, I think, I knew that my fans would have my back. I knew that I had this great, committed community, supportive community, but I didn't really fully clock that as an artist, first of all, you're always trying to serve the art, the things that you're writing, the things that you're making, you kind of want to put that first. But you're always sort of serving another master. And I think in my case, I chose, instead of serving the master of mainstream music, Rolling Stone magazine, the major labels, MTV.
They're like music middlemen.
Music middlemen, the companies, the corporations, the offices, the desks, whatever. I wound up serving my fans. But it's still a job. It's still a job where you have to clock time and clock hours and stay connected. It's sort of like nothing comes for free. You either work the machine and play the machine game, which is a complicated game and a frustrating game, and for artists it can be a really powerless and vulnerable game because you're not really in control of the narrative. Or you can play the other game, which is a more authentic game where you're still serving. You're still of service as an artist, but you're serving your fans, you're serving your community. But you still have to serve. You never get to just sit in a room and go, everybody f*** off, I'm just gonna make music and slide it under the door and you guys deal with it. You're just not allowed to do that. I mean, you're allowed to do that, but you won't get anywhere.
It won't work.
You'll never get outside the room. You need to, and I think one of the things that I grew up not understanding that did change for me is I grew up, how old are you? About 30s?
Very good, 33.
33?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm 41, so we've got a little bit of space between us, but I grew up in super pop world, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, Cyndi Lauper, and MTV and radio. And, I just assumed that if you wanted to be a successful musician, it was about aiming there and eventually getting there.
Right.
And I didn't have many influences in my immediate life in my cute little leafy suburb outside of Boston, Massachusetts, to actually teach me that you can do this job as a musician basically in service of a community, not just in service of yourself and your ego with MTV as the ultimate altar.
Yeah, and the platinum records on the wall.
Right. And so that's something that I really started to understand in the Dresden Dolls, and then as my solo career started, is that it wasn't about aiming there and stepping on everybody's head to get there. It was actually about being here with these people, writing music that reflected something real that would make them go, oh my God, I get it.
But doesn't that just sounds like so much more work though? I mean, and you have been prolific. Like if you spend, as I did the last 3 days, just kind of going through all your work.
Sorry.
It was fantastic. It was amazing. But I couldn't get even through 15% of it.
Sure, yeah.
That's added to the fact that you do give a lot of yourself your fans. There's a lot of personal time that you give to your fans. You're very active on social media, especially to your patrons. Whereas someone who has gone through a record label would have a PR department with the label that does all that work for them. Do you find it exhausting to do it this way?
I don't. And I think that's also the thing that sets me apart from pop musicians who appear once a year, do a bunch of social media, have their moment where everyone talks about them for 3 weeks and then they go away. And I think that's a choice. It's a lifestyle choice. So if that's the lifestyle that you need and you want, and you're Adele, you have every right to make that choice. And it's sort of like feast or famine. But then Adele gets to enjoy her time alone, away from the public eye, off social media, with her kid. And the important thing to always recognize is that it's a personal choice sometimes for the artist. Adele might not want my life, and I might be driven crazy by Adele's life. So, the fans, the audience, the media should never cast judgment on which way is the right way. There is no right way.
Sure.
It's what you want.
But to be told that there are multiple ways is like a revolution.
There's thousands of ways.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 paths. And I happen to really like constant conversation with my community, with my fans. In all honesty, I could have been on time for this interview, but I was so exploding with thoughts and rage and desire to just get this blog out about the connection between grandmothers in Zimbabwe and a school shooting in Florida. And I knew that if I waited until tonight, I wasn't going to do it.
It would just kind of flutter off.
I just was like, I have to sit down and write this now or it's just not going to happen. Can I be late for press? Yes, thank God. But, it's not just transmitting those thoughts about the connection between the grandmothers in Zimbabwe and the school shooting in Florida and my voice as a musician. It's also about logging in tonight and tomorrow and reading the 300 comments about the people from Florida, because I have fans in Florida. I have tons of fans in the States and in the UK and in Cape Town and in Australia. And watching these 300 people get to all sort of chat with each other and go, yeah, this is mad. What do we do? How are we feeling about this? I'm really sad. This happened one town away from me. Oh my God, we're so sorry. Here's a hug. And watching, my ability to bring all of those people together, which The Guardian can't quite do, and the New York Times can't quite do.
Because it's not a person, it's not a human being.
Well, it's just not an umbrella. It's a mall instead of a living room. And what I have created with my community and my fans is more like a living room or a really cozy bar where everybody knows each other and can speak really freely, because there aren't...
In my house, that's the kitchen. We
kitchen.
exclusively talk in the kitchen for some strange reason.
That's That's not strange. That's actually pretty typical. It's always the kitchen. It's where the food is.
Yeah.
So, I feel like I didn't start out as a songwriter and a musician and a touring performer thinking that this was sort of going to be the job. But I love this job because I love that I can use art and music as a way to make people feel fundamentally less alone.
And I can, again, attest to that, because in so many of your blog posts and in a lot of the things you create, you not just welcome comments, but you ask for it. Like, please, I want to know your thoughts. Is it very important for you to have that engagement and with your fans? I mean, that's kind of what you just said, that it is important, but is it a form of validation for you, or is it a way for you to, the term you used earlier was serve, you're serving them by giving them a space to comment?
I think it's both. I mean, anybody who uses social media or the anything of the internet in any way knows the weird tightrope emotional dance between, am I doing this just to be validated? Kind of yes, but also not completely. Like, no wonder we're all totally nuts right now. But yeah, I mean, it's funny. Neil and I, my husband, Neil Gaiman, who also uses tons of social media, you know.
So I just saw our producers just kind of drop off. I don't know, you said Neil Gaiman and they both just kind of fell off their seats.
Do your job. We both use a lot of social media, but we use it in slightly different ways. But one of the things that I've learned since, and I've been with Neil for almost 10 years, and the two of us, like we call it the threesome relationship that we have. Like our fans are this other partner.
The trifecta.
But, you know, if Neil and I would ever go into kind of a marital tiff, spat, you know, like, oh, like I'm feeling, you know, aggrieved or angry and I just need to go into my own lonely corner and f you, we would both always undoubtedly turn to social media for comfort and validation and company. So if you want to go back in history, someone can write this book, maybe it's you, go back in history and look at giant spikes of simultaneous Amanda Palmer and Neil Gaiman's social media use. It'll be around book releases and marriage arguments. Because you're, you know, but also...
I can't imagine anyone ever being angry with you. This is a bizarre thing in my mind.
I hang out in our house for a week. But, you know, in that sense, there's a broad spectrum, and on, you know, on this side, you've got a 15-year-old girl with 10 Instagram followers, and over here you've got like Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift. And it is kind of all the same. You know, being validated and seen by another human being, whether it's in person like this or on your phone or wherever, it hits the same cortex. And the best thing most honest thing you can do as an artist is to just be very frank with yourself about how authentic you can be in the face of this ego validation that you need, which is totally real and totally fine. You stroke yourself like you need to be loved. Yes. Just like everybody else does. Just like everybody else does. And Morrissey needs more love than all of us, as we know. And you just take it as part and parcel of the bag. It's like, you know, we're all doing it. We all need to be seen and loved. Are we doing it in a way that feels real? Does it feel authentic or does it feel bull? You know, I went down a weird internet hole yesterday and saw Taylor Swift, you know, speaking of this end of things, Taylor Swift has a new record out and like she's all of a sudden going on Instagram and like literally looking at her fans' stories and like Instagramming up a storm and saying, hi, I love you, do you love me, hi, I love you, like a massive explosion of connection. And
because some marketing manager probably
she's the marketing manager. She's a smart cookie, and she knows that, you know, you can go in and you can always fan the flames of lots and lots of buzz and human connection. And then the question is that authentic? Does Taylor Swift really care about her fans when she goes, you know, way deep into her 3,000 Instagram comments and picks, you know, Happy Kitty 33 from Singapore and decides to talk to her? Is that an authentic move? And there's really no answer to that, because on the one hand, Happy Kitty 33 in Singapore is going to have one of the best days of her life because she was authenticated by her idol. And on the other hand, Taylor Swift is absolutely in record promo cycle. Again, just like me and Adele, it's like both are true. You know, and
which one's more valid? You getting a bit of feedback because you've had an argument with hubby, or Taylor Swift needing a little bit of self-promotion?
Right, and at the end of the day, you know, we all have to live with ourselves and how authentic we feel we are. And I think one of the reasons that I like staying constantly connected is if I were to only go onto the internet when I had something to sell you, I would feel like a fraud. I would feel like the asshole friend who only calls when they need money. Everyone has that friend.
That's not me at all. If you don't know which friend that is, you're that friend.
And I write about this in The Art of Asking. A relationship that's a real relationship always has to be two-sided. It always has to be a constant connection and a constant checking in. And it isn't a real authentic friendship if you're only asking when you need something. And you're never saying, hey, how are you? How's your kid? How's your life? I actually care about you. I'm not just going to come when I need something.
So that gives me a great opportunity to segue into the art of asking and your TED Talk. In the book, in one of the first chapters, in fact, I think it's the first chapter, you spoke about how people, after you gave your TED Talk, people were just blown away, and you were shocked by the amount of people that came to you and said, you've completely opened my mind to this concept of asking.
Yeah.
I must say, I watched your TED Talk and I had the same experience of going, oh, I'm allowed to ask for things? Why do you think we are so inherently, and it seems to be worldwide because of the comments that you see on the TED Talk and the response you see from your book, it seems to be from all cultures across the world that we have this inherent need not to ask for things. Why are we like that?
Well, so much of it in different cultures comes from different places. And I mean, I did my TED Talk aimed squarely at musicians and artists. I wasn't thinking about the rest of the world. I had an inkling that, of course, these themes are universal and stuff, but one of the things that will help contextualize it is I had spent the entire year, and I'm not exaggerating, pretty much, the entire year of 2012 getting shouted at on the internet for having used Kickstarter, for being a stupid, selfish, vain, greedy artist because I had the gall to crowdfund a record, which was totally tasteless.
That doesn't sound like the internet at all.
And then to make things worse, when I started touring with my band, I did something that I was already in the habit of doing, which is I asked any of my fans who wanted to volunteer to play with my band, do one rehearsal and sound check and come up and play a violin or play a saxophone, or if you play an instrument.
So people are seeing, on the one hand, you're getting all of this money for your Kickstarter, but you're also asking for volunteers.
Right, and I had always asked for volunteers. I'd been asking my fans and community for come perform at my shows, come busk outside, come bring my band food, we'll give you tickets, we'll give you merch. There had been a non-monetary exchange of stuff forever, since the dawn of the Dresden Dolls. And I'd never been yelled at it, and my fans loved it, and everyone loved it, and it was a big love fest until the headlines hit that Amanda Palmer had made $1 million on Kickstarter, and this rich, greedy had the gall to, on top of that, not pay her stage musicians. That became the story, and I was like, no. And what really hurt me was that even the people who knew better, the smart people, only read the clickbait and didn't read the story.
Go into the whole meat of the story.
So I got really maligned and outcast and yelled at. The indie music community really turned on me. And no matter how many times I explained it, I didn't feel understood. And so when TED came to me and said, do you want to do a talk about this? Because I had actually pitched them a different talk about the connection between street performing and crowdfunding.
Which you had done for such a long time. I mean, I would love to talk about that, but let's focus on
It's easy. I was a street performer for a long time, and I think, the skills that I learned as a street performer made me ripe and ready for crowdfunding, because it's really just all about giving what you have for free and hoping that people will come throw $1 in, which is basically what crowdfunding is. And so doing that TED Talk was so profoundly important to me, because I knew I was taking a world stage and I was going to finally get to set the record straight about what it meant to ask and how it wasn't bad. And I had seen enough of my musician and artist friends suffering, especially because Kickstarter was brand new. And I don't know if you remember, but back in 2012, a musician would go to Kickstarter and people would be like, why are you begging for money? This is stupid. Why are you begging for money? Why can't you just...
I remember all the videos of musicians kind of awkwardly rubbing their hands together. Hey, it's my bad.
I was totally aiming my talk at all of my contemporaries to just be like, that's not the way it is. pre-selling a record on the internet for $10 does not make you a bad, greedy person. It's totally legit. It's more legit because then you get to keep the money and you don't have to give it to a record label.
Yeah.
So everyone just take a step back.
A bit of perspective is good.
That's what my TED Talk was about. But then, you know, the larger global human themes under it became really apparent, which is when you authentically ask someone for something and they authentically want to help you, your asking them is a gift, not an imposition. And this, back to the school shootings and back to your president, literally this like cellular part of the DNA of our society is one of the things that is broken and stopping us from helping each other and stopping the grandmother from Zimbabwe who's sitting on the bench, you know, able to help the 23-year-old mother who just got diagnosed with HIV and is just standing there alone going, I want to commit suicide. And these two people being able to connect with each other, which could entail the grandmother asking, do you need someone to talk to? Or the woman saying, I'm all alone, I don't have anyone to share this with. Just that moment, if we could fix that in society, everything else would trickle up.
I mean, it's a real intimacy and vulnerability that's kind of woven into what you've just been talking about. And I, as someone who struggles, I mean, I struggle to ask my own family for help, let alone...
Oh, they're the worst, though.
Okay, good, it's not just me.
No. Your family's always the worst because the greatest number of strings attached
comes with
come
that.
from mom and dad.
Okay,
so,
that makes a lot more sense then.
Yeah,
but,
it's not just you, it's all of us.
But there's that sense of vulnerability that comes with asking someone for help, of going,
Right.
I can't do this by myself, I need you. Have you ever struggled with that? Or are you just like the superhero person who doesn't feel that at all?
No, I mean, I still struggle with it all the time. I write about it. I wrote about it in the book. You know, there I was like queen of crowdfunding. And, you know, I was dealing with financial struggles at the time and had to borrow money from Neil and like literally couldn't live with myself. Was just like shaking and crying from shame that like Amanda Palmer, independent indie musician, feminist powerhouse, was gonna have to borrow money from her famous author husband, and I was just like...
And this was like the day before you were gonna have your wedding celebration, is that right?
A shit show. But I write about it in the book, and I still struggle with it. You know, it's not like you get over these things and all of a sudden you're just a fountain of confidence. But just being able to recognize it is enough for me. You know, all going like, oh, there you are again, that voice that's like, you should just be completely ashamed, you know, what right do you have to ask for this? Oh, you're a total failure, da-da-da. Like, they live here. I'm like, hey, there you are again, what's up? Hi, guys.
I recognize
like,
you.
Can you just go here right now? And that's, I mean, this is also something that I brought in from my yoga and meditation practice. It's not that you become enlightened. It's not that all of a sudden you're sitting there on a cloud. It's that you familiarize yourself with the demonic voices in your head and you befriend them. That's the best you'll ever get.
Okay, you can't defeat them, you just have to, if you can't beat them, join them.
Befriend them.
Just keep them there. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. I wanted to talk to you about motherhood and the song you wrote, The Mother's Confession, which my wife adores and all of her mom friends adore. I want to talk to you about the fights you've had with the Daily Mail. Well, not fights, but the back and forth you've had with the Daily Mail. And there's a lot more, but I don't want to take up a lot of your time.
I have nowhere to go.
Okay, so can we talk about A Mother's Confession? Because I literally found it, I found it two days ago. And I started listening to the song and I was like, no, I need to get the lyrics. So I found the lyrics, read through them, and...
Did you read the footnotes?
No.
Oh my God.
No. No.
She's like, oh.
Is that the coolest part?
It's the coolest part. There are 69 footnotes on the page with the song on it, and it explains every event in the entire song. It's really funny.
Oh, why didn't I do that? Oh, I should have done that, but...
You can still go do it.
I sent it, I immediately went, this is my wife talking to me. This is, I've had these conversations, well, I've had this conversation with myself, and my wife and I have had these conversations of just feeling like a constant failure as a parent. And then she has a project where she deals with a lot of vulnerable moms. She sent it to them, and it resonated with all of them. How does that feel when you do something, when you make a thing, which is really just your own confessional story, where it really felt like you were just saying it to have a cathartic moment yourself?
Yeah.
And then all of these people go, yes, finally someone else has said it.
It feels really good.
Okay.
I mean, it feels like when you're an artist and you can express something super specific and super personal, but through the act of doing that, give anybody any form of liberation from their own self-criticism or their own self-sabotage, it feels like the absolute pinnacle of why you were called to be a writer. You know, when you can concretely help someone with their struggle or their depression or their parenting. And this is also, I mean, not to get wide and political again, but this is all
please,
super...
just go as wide and political as we need.
It's all super connected because you look at what is happening in the States right now, and Donald Trump is, you know, trying to literally slash all public funding for the arts as if it's a luxury that we don't need. And you look at the fabric of society and what it takes to keep us connected and surviving on a day-to-day basis. Like, what keeps a mother of a 5-month-old baby from going bat loony? And it isn't just government funding for roads and buildings. It isn't, you know, it isn't just the concrete bridges and plumbing. It's the tools and the containers for expression that allow us to recognize our common humanity. That was pretty good.
That was really good.
God damn it, I'm good.
You nailed that. You totally did.
But or to like put it more simply, people need art to feel normal. And if they don't have it, we all go into a sort of collective insanity. So yes, we have to have food and shelter and medicine first. Super important. But right after it, once everyone is clothed and fed and not getting rained on, we have to have ways. And there's a reason that we have had art and music and theater from the dawn of time. We have to have the tools to be able to empathize and recognize our common humanity. And when you look at administrations like the Trump administration, who really only look at art as status symbol, luxury, mindless entertainment, and don't understand the core purposes of you know, the functioning society needing art, you just start to despair. Because art helps mental health. You know, me writing a song about, you know, leaving my baby in the back of the car by accident and watching him fall off a shelf because I wasn't looking, and confessing the nightmarish things that go on in the head of a parent who has just had a child, and, you know, realizing there's no rule book and there's no expert.
What do I do now?
What do I do now?
Yeah.
Those are sort of like the circular tribal storytelling moments that keep us from going off the rails. And if we don't have them, we ultimately won't sustain. We fall apart. There's a great quote, and I should actually get it right someday because I've been telling people about this, but I got to look up the source. But someone told me that Winston Churchill, somewhere in the height of the Blitz and the terror of World War II, was, in a room, politicians in Britain, and they were talking about closing down, to save money and resources, they were talking about closing down all of the museums and all of the federally, the nationally funded art spots. And he refused to do it. And he said to the room full of people, if we take away the museums and the libraries, oh my God, I'm going to cry, and the art, what are we fighting for? Then why are we alive? And I'm just like,
because that's the
white guy, but still, listen to him.
that's the connection points. Those are the points where, like you're saying, we understand each other better. Just yeah.
It's all good.
No.
I'm verklempt.
I write a small blog about parenting, and I occasionally I'll have a dad come to me and say, the thing you wrote about losing your temper, I thought I was the only one, and just having you tell me that you also lose your temper sometimes, or you struggle with it, actually gives me the strength to deal with this thing that I don't want to be as well. Like it's
because I'm not alone.
Because we're not alone.
And so without art, literature, music, songs, stories, the right kind of media, how do we know that we're not alone?
We need it.
We need it.
Can we pivot to talk about your concert just for, because
please.
There's so many things I want to, oh my word, there's not enough hours in a day. And
Sure.
You're playing this weekend at Spier Wine Estates.
Yeah.
And then you're also in Johannesburg.
Yeah, I'm playing on the 17th at Spier Amphitheatre with a piano, but I have some exciting special guests.
Lovely.
Including Patty Monroe, who I was just asking you about. This amazing South African hip-hop artist, MC, firecracker, who I literally just found, like ran into her, long story, but totally randomly, synchronicity. And she and I are going to collaborate, and we're going to see if punk, cabaret, piano, and hip hop can ever meet.
But also, you did mention in one of your recent blog posts, had a bit of run-in with the law on Boulders Beach.
No, I did not.
Oh, not with the law. Okay, but
no, they just threatened to call the police
because you decided to get changed just right there and then, and we're still a conservative society.
It wasn't flagrant. I was sort of shocked.
But you did threaten to be nude in the
should I tell the story?
Tell the story,
so
sorry. I'm totally misquoting you.
I'm on Boulders Beach with my husband, my 2-year-old, and a friend of ours. And we're up against a giant boulder. We've put all our bags down. We have our towels. We're playing with the penguins. It's all really cute. And I need to change into my swimsuit, so I back myself up against the rock. I don't hide, but I'm not standing out in the middle of the beach flashing
hey
my
everybody!
Tits. And I change into my swimsuit. It's all good. I go off. I take a dip. I come back. There's more playing with penguins. It's all wonderful. And this couple 10 feet away from us, the woman looks up and she says, blah, 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 I don't really quite hear what she's saying, blah, 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 the police. And I go, wait, what? Where are the police? It's never good when the police are here. And she says, no, we can call the police. And I was like, oh my God, it must be...
Has something happened?
No, I got what she was saying because of the disdain in her face. But then the Amanda Palmer in me was like, you're not going to tell me what to do. You've got to be kidding me. And my 2-year-old is right here. And she said... there are changing rooms right over there. There are children on this beach, and we are child psychologists. And I was like, really? And here's where the equanimity comes in. There were 2 parts of me. One part of me was I am gonna if you really want to have a talk about child psychology, I'm going to come over, I'm going to sit down on your towel, and I'm going to talk to you about the psychology of being judgmental and angry in front of my 2-year-old, because I think it's a really bad influence on him. Or, the other part of me, which is just smile and nod and walk away. The immature part, and the mature part. And I smiled and nodded and walked away. And then I had to deal with that really weird thing, because they were our beach partners, so they were 10 feet away, and everything I was doing, they were watching me. Then I was performing my life. Everything I was doing with Ash, I was she's looking, she's judging my mothering, am I being a good mother? And I was performing amazing motherness, and I was just oh, this is bananas, I hope they just leave, and they did. But yeah, I was then, that opened up an interesting conversation with me and my, newfound artist friends from Cape Town, who were oh yeah, there's some conservative mofos in this place. It's not quite and I was I thought America was conservative. That's next level.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would have happened to me, but that might have happened to me on a beach in a retirement community in Florida. I don't know.
Has to be a retirement community.
But this is where you get me and Neil getting into an argument, because Neil is like British and very proper, and when there are rules, he will follow
And
them.
he fits in perfectly in Cape Town.
Totally, and he's just like, you know, you could see your boobs, darling, and I'm just saying they were there, and she was quite shocked. And I'm like, good. She should look at my boob. My boobs are very normal. Everyone has to evolve. If it needs to be me, fine. I will throw my boobs under the bus for the good of civilization.
To drag us all forward.
That's a beautiful image, isn't it?
So your concert was actually what we were talking about.
We were. Why do we keep not talking about my concert?
I made the awful mistake of talking about nudity in front of you. I think that was my bad. So this weekend at Spier, there's still tickets available. We have a whole bunch of artists. Are there any particular songs that you are really looking forward to performing that we can?
You know, in the wake of Donald Trump and Me Too, I have found myself being more excited about the more political, liberating material, and not less excited about the super personal heartbreak stuff. But it's going to be a combo of the two. And one of the really nice things about the show at Spier versus Fox Junction, which is where I'm playing in Johannesburg, is I have a giant grand piano. And I love banging out of a giant fancy grand piano. So I might play some of my more lyrical ballads and stuff because I have beautiful long piano.
Cool. Well, we're looking forward to that. So we were very lucky that Amanda Palmer has not just arrived in herself, but also arrived in the form of a ukulele. And you're going to play some songs for us, for me?
Yes.
It's so weird. I've never been a singular person in a. I've never like sat and been performed to like this. So it's going to be a unique experience for me.
So yes, so for people who don't know me, my main thing is I'm a piano player. But I picked up the ukulele a few years ago, and it's very handy for situations like this, where there's no piano.
You don't lug a grand piano around the world with you?
Well, I had no idea how crippling it actually was to be a piano player until I picked up the ukulele, and I was like, oh my God, you can play music anywhere. This is amazing. And so I actually started playing the ukulele as a joke. I did a Radiohead cover at a benefit. I just taught myself 3 chords off the internet and thought that was going to be it. But I was so excited by the liberation of being able to walk around and play that. So I started writing songs on the ukulele, and most of my ukulele songs are very simple. Most of them are 3 chords, but it's punk rock and roll.
If you had not told me that, I wouldn't have known. So
Anyway, this is also my bumbling caveat to be like, this isn't all I do. Believe me, I'm actually a real musician in real life. I fell in love with the ukulele enough that it evolved from being a joke to the point where now at my real shows, like at Spier Amphitheatre, I'll do at least a couple songs on the ukulele.
Great.
And to recap, I'm going to have 2 special guests, it looks like. Patty Monroe, the amazing hip-hop artist I was telling you about, and Nate Maingard, who's also a local South African singer-songwriter.
Great.
Who I've been following on Twitter, and he's been following me, and we've sort of seen each other from afar, and I was like, come, do a song. So hopefully he comes too.
It's gonna be a great night.
Special guesties, Neil might guest, if he makes it off set. So
if you are a science fiction lover of Neil Gaiman, who's your husband, we haven't really spoken about it much because I really just wanted this to be about you. Yeah, we'll get way too sidetracked, but he might be there too. So there's a lot of really, that's 1, 2, 3. I can get at least 5 good reasons. I'll meet
at least 3 people today.
And then you'll pull them in.
And then there's usually 9 people on stage by the end of it.
Okay, so what you got for us?
This is In My Mind, the song that we were talking about earlier, my embarrassing hippie song that I never thought I was going to play for anyone, but wound up doing it, and now it's become beloved.
Let's go.
In my mind, in a future 5 years from now, I'm 120 pounds, and I never get hungover because I will be the picture of discipline, never minding what state I'm in, and I will be someone I admire. And it's funny how I imagined that I would be that person now, but it does not seem to have happened. Maybe I've just forgotten how to see that I'm not exactly the person that I want to be. And in my mind, in the faraway here and now, I've become in control somehow, and I never lose my wallet because I will be the picture of discipline, never fucking up anything, and I'll be a good defensive driver. And it's funny how I imagined that I would be that person now, but it does not seem to have happened. Maybe I've just forgotten how to see that I'm not exactly the person that I thought I'd be. And in my mind, when I'm old, I am beautiful, planting tulips and vegetables, which I will mindfully watch over, not like me now. I'm so busy with everything that I don't look at anything, but I'm sure I'll look when I am older. And it's funny how I imagined that I would be that person now, but that's not what I want. If that's what I wanted, then I'd be giving up somehow. How strange to see that I don't want to be the person that I want to be. And in my mind, I imagine so many things that aren't really happening. And when they put me in the ground, I'll start pounding the lid, saying I haven't finished yet. I still have a tattoo to get that says I'm living in the moment. And it's funny how I imagined that I would win this fight, but maybe it really isn't funny that I've been fighting all my life. But maybe I have to think it's funny if I want to live before I die. And maybe it's funniest of all to think I'll die before I actually see that I am exactly the person that I want to be. Fuck yes, I am exactly the person that I want to be.
Incredible.
Tough.
Amanda Palmer at Spier this Saturday. We're going to put the link to get tickets in the description. I want to say below us. It'll be somewhere around. Amanda, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. We could talk for like 9 more hours.
Honestly,
so we'll have to do it again.
Honestly, I could. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.